It's dorkshelf.com. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
We didn't even say our names last time. This is
Did we
Spoiled
not?
Rotten. I am Daniel.
I just assumed by season 4 people would know that it's
Yeah,
Ben and Daniel in the morning.
Exactly. And I have been watching Community again.
That's right.
We're on Dork Shelf now, so we gotta make sure
we gotta represent, I guess.
Yeah, we have to represent
It's new
ourselves,
audience.
our new home, and introduce ourselves to our new audience, which could potentially be every single episode.
I know, right? So sorry about being lazy that episode.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do a hyper good introduction this time, which is past now.
So it's happening. You just experienced our introduction to this show, Spoiled Rotten, where we today are going to talk about Cloverfield Paradox. Is that what it's called?
Cloverfield Paradox is
Not
the main
God
entree of it.
particle.
And I know it's been out for a while, but it's still worthy of discussion. Because there's quite a few things to talk about that movie. But before the entree that we get
we
to.
loved last time we did trailers, and
Yeah.
I feel like that was because there was a bunch of trailers to talk about.
Yeah.
But usually, if this is the first time you're listening, we like to talk about what we've heard on the internet and through friends about upcoming movies,
And-
usually comic book related,
Yeah, and
but
the
definitely Star
rumors
Wars.
and, definitely comic book related.
And-
Anything geeky that we want to do.
Yeah,
To be perfectly honest.
and then we give our opinion on it,
Yeah.
and either you like it or you go, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
But you're engaged.
But we also want to hear why you disagree.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Honestly, me and Dan are caught in our own vacuum, in our own bubble sometimes of discussion. And having other people interject and add their opinions onto it is something that's welcomed and amazing. Because we can hear so much more about what you guys want to think and talk about. It gives us more to think about.
So you can do that. I'm on Twitter at the Young Guard.
Yeah.
Ben is DM Platypus.
I think I'm DM Platypus.
You
for
are?
Sure. Yeah.
We also have a Twitter handle if you want to just overall talk about it at
Yes,
TDF Everything.
Yep.
And
And the
you can let
Instagram's
Dork Shelf
coming
know
soon.
if you like what we're doing. That's at Dork Shelf. But yeah, there's many ways to get in touch with us on Twitter, and we'll talk about other ways later. Let's do this right away.
Yes.
No delay. We're going to talk about Joss Whedon stepping away from Batgirl.
Yeah.
A lot of people have opinions on why this may be.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like to bring up the stuff with his ex-wife.
I think that's definitely a factor. I mean,
yeah,
you and I have
you
talked
can't
about
ignore
this
it. Yeah,
at
you
great
can,
lengths.
that's not something that would be ignored. Don't
Yeah,
get me wrong.
Because the way they're spinning this right now is what I'm uncomfortable with, because it's a blatant lie in the sense where Whedon, for the past year, has been in development for this. And then all of a sudden has said, oh, I just, you know what, I got to step away because I don't have a story. It's
So-
impossible for me to believe that he doesn't have a story when
So
there's so
what
much
I
material
heard-
to adapt.
I want to say from John Schnepp,
Yeah.
who did What Happened to the Death of Superman. Whatever. You can
Right.
find him on Collider.
Right.
Whatever. John Schnepp. I think he said it was a theory, so it's not like he knows for sure. But this is a theory that
conspiracies,
I
I like it.
actually could follow the thread and be like,
Right.
that makes sense. Is that he was always being courted to fix Justice League.
Yes.
Batgirl was like subterfuge. So he could be like, well, I guess he's already in the building. Makes sense that he would do Justice League.
Yep.
Whereas the plan was always to do Justice League.
Yep.
Because there was a clear mandate, get away from everything Zack Snyder.
Yep.
So they brought in Joss Whedon with no real plans of doing Batgirl. Maybe if he did come up with an idea, they would have been like, okay, great, we'll run with it. But the push was always just fix Justice League. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, and I heard a very, very similar report that they used Batgirl as a negotiating chip for Whedon.
Sure.
Because, I mean, like, that, if you follow Whedon's work, that would definitely entice Whedon to actually do it.
Right.
And plus, he's worked on, like, Wonder Woman scripts before. He's very, like, driven from a female storytelling standpoint, and that, like, there's a little bit of controversy from his ex-wife and all that kind of stuff.
And his Wonder Woman script.
And his Wonder Woman script, for sure. But, you know, I heard some stuff like they use Batgirl as a way to negotiate.
Sure.
But further evidence to support that was in his contract, there was heavy incentives for him to actually prematurely leave the DC universe. So there was I think the amount of money he's offered to like step away if he ever have to was like something you don't ignore, in the sense where if that's in your contract negotiation, you're like, if I stepped away from this and got $50 million, why would I want to write the script?
Right.
And I mean, like, it's not that, and it's because it comes at a time where Whedon, because of his the blog post that his ex-wife wrote about him being like secretly a wolf in sheep's skin,
right.
Around women and stories, and him using feminism as a defense shield to be like, no, I'm not this, I'm actually this, and then behind closed doors is another thing, and then the Me Too movement, he's just like, you know what, I'm just going to step away from this. I think there's elements of all those things involved. I think,
well, what I would say is, if anything, while I acknowledge that has to factor in what his ex-wife said, what I think is more pertinent is that we now have two great examples of when a woman is at the helm of Wonder Woman. You see how people react to that. And when Black people were able to be in decision-making positions during Black Panther, definitely you can see what happens with that.
So. Yeah.
So that's why I also see, like, they're probably like, you don't need to kill yourself over this. We're gonna need to move away from a white male doing the Batgirl story. And
it's not exclusively to the white males. The way I see it is basically more of a connection standpoint to the material that's being done. Because when you hear about Ryan Coogler talk about some scene breakdowns, I watched this one,
the casino,
the casino scene of Black Panther. The amount of detail he put into the costume, into everything, even like him talking about the wig,
or
that,
just
like
his story in general of like being able to go to Africa, and that was the first time he was able to connect with his roots. And so you can obviously see that through Killmonger of like that feeling of feeling disconnected from, but like you don't get that story necessarily with that depth if Joss Whedon does Black Panther. Our good friend Roxane Gay, who I follow her on Twitter, but if you're looking for her comic book credentials, she wrote World of Wakanda.
Oh, fantastic.
So there's a Black Panther. But she basically, I'm going to go to the actual tweet exchange because it was a pretty interesting one.
Right.
Of basically, Roxane Gay just said, hey, at DC Comics, I can write your Batgirl movie, no prob. And then a VP at DC was like, if you're serious, contact me, and gave her full-on email just out on the internet.
That's nuts, man.
And Roxane Gay was just like, yeah, I'm serious. I will email you.
Jesus. Wow.
And if you follow her, you'll see that she's kind of like, yep, we've talked about it. Like, I've met with them. Like, she's like, wow, this is really getting some traction.
I like the transparency behind that.
This doesn't mean that she will end up writing, but like, it means that DC is clearly serious about like, you know what? Now, to be fair, that was at DC Comics that she tweeted, but the person who responded is DC Entertainment, not DC Comics. Yeah. So it is someone in the film industry. It's not like the comic books were like, oh yeah, sure, if you want to write it. So that's good that they're looking at someone else to
write this thing.
So that's Batgirl stuff.
Yep.
Aquaman test screening.
Yep.
So we had you got pretty heated about this.
I didn't get heated. I got heated about
it. So the word is from test audiences that Aquaman is good. Another person I follow on Twitter who is in the biz, Jeff Snyder,
right?
Not spelt like Zack Snyder,
right?
He also has said, like, no, this is legitimately a good movie.
Right.
And he's pretty harsh.
And that's before, like, CGI and all that. Obviously, that stuff is done because the movie's not out until, like, November or fall this year. December of this year. So, obviously, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. Now, my, I guess, heated aspect of this is, what are they doing hyping up the movie so early without a poster, without a teaser trailer, without anything? From the marketing standpoint, it doesn't really make sense. Because, and this is why I was a little upset, because I thought I rethought about my stance on this was that my thing was DC has traditionally hyped their movies very, very well and then not been able to deliver on the product, with the exception of obviously Wonder Woman. Arguably Man of Steel 2 does deliver to a bigger degree. But they've famously been able to hype and then flop. So to me, I guess my argument or my thought pattern now is I would think that DC would have learned enough by that point in time to make it so that they're going to hype Aquaman less and then have that outperform everything else or blow past all expectations. But at the same time, to your degree, the Aquaman, the hyping stuff, the marketing stuff, that's not just to sell movie tickets, that's also to sell other merchandise related to it, the movie as well.
I just think it's for good faith.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I think it's so that you don't really think about Justice League anymore.
Yeah. We would all like to not think about that.
Yeah, so it's out of the cycle, right? So if you keep telling people Batgirl, Nightwing, and then like both of those things got pushed back like 5 years, so that's whatever. But if you're not talking about Justice League anymore and you're not really engaging in the whole well, we already know the Blu-ray's out and it's just gonna be 15 minutes more of whatever Joss Whedon shot, right? And that's pretty much their stance. Fuck it, it's done. And so if you keep talking about stuff people like, that's one side of it. And then if you're one thing there where people are kind of like Aquaman, but if people start being like, no, it's actually good, then you're just elevating your status, right? And that's more what they need to do. So the poster isn't going to do much for someone who already didn't really want to see it, right? But hearing that it's actually good, it goes further for sure.
And Daniel's point was the hype is because I was arguing DC in general, but you made a good point of the marketing department or the advertising department and the actual filmmaking department are two separate things. And it just, like, if a movie's hyped up that good, that just means the marketing advertising department actually did their jobs really, really well. And it's the actual product that flopped. It's nothing to do with each other. And I guess my standpoint is like, because the Marvel aspect has been so consistent on both parts, where like marketing has been great as well as a product, it was a little bit hard for me to separate.
But so you're saying they should be like, it'll be fine? Yeah. No.
I think so.
No business will ever do that.
I would love for I'm like, Momoa just being a couple like interviews, like, well, I guess it'll be pretty okay.
Well, I know they have Ben Affleck for that to undersell stuff.
It's true, they do have a Ben Affleck buffer.
Yeah, but I think, no business is ever going to be like, I don't know, see if he wanted. We tried.
I would like for that to happen. I would like for that to be the most successful marketing campaign, just to like
that would
have a
mean
business
that
nag everyone to be like, you know what, we don't need your business. We're going to survive without you.
But that would mean the marketing is coming from the actual people making the film instead of a separate entity that like only really gets paid if they get people to be excited about it.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I have definitely recognize the fact that my heated emotional attachment to my opinion was not a good one whatsoever. But it's still, that's where it's at right now.
Shazam, everyone saw the outfit and then everyone had opinions. Here's the outfit if you want to remind yourself.
The back of it.
Is this like in the Bay and... No, not Bay. It's
like
young and
it's like
I feel like it could be. I'm
like
thinking it's that like hotel that's kind of like across from Zanzibar type thing, like on Young near Gerard.
Oh yeah. I think the Delta.
Something like that.
Yeah. I've been in that.
This means everything to people from not Toronto.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
because Toronto people love it when we're like, "Hey, I recognize that filming location." Actually, I'm pretty sure everybody from every city would do that. They're like, "Oh yeah, I know where that is. I go there regularly for shawarma."
This is his suit. He looks fine.
People
were really mad about that.
I'm more interested in what his hair looks like because it looks weird in that. Like it looks like he's wearing.
It looks like the slick back thing that he.
But it looks like an artificially slick back thing that almost looks like a helmet. Like it looks comedic.
Yeah.
To me, sure.
When you look at pictures of Shazam, that is because he's a projection of a kid, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a kid thinking about. Well, what I like when it's him, it's a kid remembering his father, and that's what he looks like.
That's a really cool.
But still, the idea that it's like from a comic book. He's not thinking of himself as a real person.
Yeah, I'm more disturbed about the Christmas decorations in that photo than anything else. Because I mean, like, you don't see the front of it; you only see the back of it, and they always said like we're doing more of the New 52 style of Shazam, where he's wearing the hood.
Yeah, he's got a hood on this.
Yeah, he's got the hood, but he's not wearing it, which is, I mean,
and he never will.
Which is what makes me comment about the hair, because if he was wearing the hood, I wouldn't comment about the hair because I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just, they're saying it's New 52 stuff. He's got the cape. He's got the.
They're
hood.
actually saying it's Justice League War style.
Oh, they really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's his outfit style.
Either way, I think it kind of looks a little bit. Very cartoonish, to be perfectly honest.
So on brand.
But, yeah, but at the same time, it's not a production photo or a still. No. It is definitely like someone with a cell phone.
Someone who's definitely about to get fired.
Yeah, that got like
very did already.
Grainy kind of thing. That was like, you know what? Snap, we got this. But at the same time, there's nothing to be excited about because I don't see what the front looks like. I don't know if it's a double-breasted kind of thing or if it's just like this unitard with the lightning bolt or anything like that. We just don't know enough.
Well, I'm sure this will encourage them to put something out.
Cool.
So people were upset that it looks like he's got padding.
Oh, it definitely looks like he's got padding.
Who cares?
Which is why I'm waiting for a production still because
I guess what I would imagine is people who wanted John Cena are mad because he doesn't look as buff as John Cena, but that's not going to matter at this point. No, this next thing is Kristen Wiig is in talks to be Wonder Woman.
Yes.
2's villain, not Wonder Woman. She is
in
talks to be Cheetah. So what I heard was Patty Jenkins is asking for this.
Yes.
Emma Stone turned it down.
Yes. She was the original top. Well,
apparently DC offers her everything.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I would love to see her in that kind of role.
I don't think this is what she's doing, but people were like, maybe she's just holding out for Batgirl, which would be like
that would make me really happy.
The management side being like, well, don't be a villain when you could be like a hero that possibly gets like a 3-movie deal out of this.
Yes, absolutely. I would love her much more as Batgirl than as Cheetah for sure. But Kristen
I wonder
Wiig,
if they went to her first for Harley Quinn. Or if that was too early on.
That would have been fun, actually. I would have liked that.
Anyway, the point is Kristen Wiig. Mm-hmm. What are your strong opinions on this?
I don't like it. My strong opinion is I don't like it because my issue here is that I love Kristen Wiig in everything she does comedically. Mm-hmm. She's a great comedic actress. She does amazing SNL stuff, and I've seen like her stuff, her episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and I really like her viewpoint on everything like that. It's the same kind of viewpoint I have. She's like, well, I always said that if I was comfortable at SNL, I would leave. And that's kind of like how I am. Like, if I'm comfortable with something, I'm going to leave it because that means I've hit my ceiling there. I can't go any beyond that anymore. So I really like her as a person and as a comedic writer and as a comedic actor. But everything I've seen her in from a dramatic standpoint, it's just dull to me. It just doesn't pop off the screen the same way, and it's not because she's not doing
you do realize she's gonna be
characters.
You do realize she's gonna be Cheetah, which is like a woman who looks like a cheetah.
Yes, absolutely. But
I think a lot of the comic book stuff will help her pop.
That's how I feel about Kristen Wiig, but I hope she proves me wrong is what I want to say, because
I don't think she'll end up doing it, but I think she'll be fine.
Yep.
She's it's already kind of like a weird enough character that you're not gonna have to worry about her being flat.
True.
Julianne Moore and Julia Roberts are the people being eyed for Nora Allen in the Flash movie. So that's good.
Personally, who would you prefer as Nora Allen?
Doesn't matter to me.
I want to say Roberts. I really do. I say Julianne. Roberts.
Her brother was in Dark Knight. She should also be in a DC movie.
Nice.
Good for her.
Like the Gyllenhaals.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't care because I think Nora Allen is a character that gets put on a pedestal and you spend more time talking about her than you spend with her. So
yeah, absolutely. You talk more about the idea of her as opposed to seeing her on screen. So to me, it doesn't really matter. But to me,
Julia Roberts,
I like Julia Roberts a little bit more with that role as opposed to more. And it's because I like the Kingsman 2 Julianne Moore.
What was her name? Poppy or something?
Poppy. Yeah. And I like that sadistic evil so much that I'm like, I kind of want you to stay that way in my mind for a little bit more.
America's sweetheart, Julia Roberts.
That's right.
And just as a little tag on that, Flashpoint as a movie is being considered more of just like a Back to the Future type thing and less which I guess is still Flashpoint, but it's more of the time travel. and less of the actual adaptation of Flashpoint.
So
which is good.
That to me says, okay, they're not going to do the alternate universe.
So it's
like
not
Thomas Wayne Batman and Martha Wayne Joker kind of thing.
They will just be going back and forth
Yes.
and not actually going into different timelines.
Yep.
Is the big distinction.
That's
I
what
think
it
they're trying to
feels
make.
like to me.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
So that's good for them.
Well, actually, it's not a shame because the Thomas Wayne Batman isn't that dissimilar to the current Batman that exists in their universe too.
I just think it's stupid to do Flashpoint on the first movie of
I completely agree with you. I heavily agree with you.
Like everyone's like, yeah, then they can fix Batman. I'm like, why would you do that on a Flash movie?
Yeah.
Why would your first Flash movie be trying to correct other characters' storylines?
That's my idea. Well, that was my idea at first. Like, this is how we fix Batman is through the Flash movie, and then you made that argument. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. It should be Batman's franchise that fixes Batman,
or just you recast someone and no one cares.
Yeah,
you just people won't be like, wait, but if he's Batman, where's Batman? It'll be like, no, he's not in it anymore.
Yeah, because we've had 4 or 5 different iterations of Batman.
Yeah.
You guys can understand the fact.
Yeah,
that
it'll be fine. You don't need to be like, okay, we're gonna do a Flashpoint movie because then we can fix it.
Yeah,
no, just make a Flash movie and make people like the Flash.
And it's not like Ben Affleck is universally loved as Batman either. There's a big fan base that does not want him there. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Just start new. I don't care at this point.
All right, we're moving into Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
The New Mutants. Last episode, I said it's a shame that they pushed the movie back so far, but it looks like they're adding a character. No one knows who the character is.
Yeah,
I'm not going to speculate on it because I don't really know New Mutants.
Me neither.
So
but I
just
mean,
yeah, sure.
that's like a huge rewrite thing that they just try to brush under the table. But like, no, we're just doing some reshoots. We're pushing it back to do this. But they're like adding a new character. That's got to be like huge story structure rewriting. Huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
unless they're
I think
doing
it got pushed back
Deadpool.
like 10 months. So
unless they're doing Deadpool and it has a cameo in it.
I guess, but that wouldn't be real.
That
I don't think they
not
would consider
be
that
good.
adding a character.
Well, I mean, it would be adding a character, but at the same time, if they're going for a horror kind of approach, why would they put comedy in all of a sudden? Unless it was a post-credit scene.
Yeah,
that would be it.
Yep. Silver Surfer is getting its own. He's going to get his own movie.
How do you feel about that?
I don't care about the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, neither do I. I'm just like the story of Silver Surfer is pretty.
I guess people are happy that it means they're obviously going to have to do a second run on Galactus and make him look good.
That is what I would be interested in for sure.
Yeah, because he is the Herald of Galactus.
Yep.
So
yep.
You can't have one without the other. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't care.
I'm
happy that it's happening for people.
Yeah.
Well, I think the point,
that's how I feel about it too. I'm just like, I'm happy that you're happy about this.
So I think what this is, because Silver Surfer and I also forgot Kitty Pryde is getting her own movie. I think what this is showing is that Fox is still going full steam ahead and not worried about this impending merger.
And that's what's weird to me. It's really weird.
Well, I mean, if it isn't going to take effect till 2020, they can't really stop doing stuff.
I mean, how much? Like, because I mean, they could say this. I get that. They could be like, we have this plan, but how much of it, if that is real, in the sense where it's like, okay, well, I guess, because that's what's confusing.
You're right. I think what the idea. This is not my original idea, but once again I can see the logic in it. Is you just make yourself as useful to Disney as possible before that merger happens, and if you're like, even if the movies don't go, the idea that you could be like, look at this amazing Silver Surfer story we came up with, look at this, and if you've got stuff on the go, it's harder for them to be like, you're out because we're doing our own thing. So
it's a save the jobs kind of thing. Do you? I
think specifically for Kitty Pryde, Tim Miller and Brian Michael Bendis,
right,
is those two guys genuinely want to do that story.
Sure.
Tim Miller being the guy who directed Deadpool.
Yeah.
I don't know why I blanked on that. And Brian Michael Bendis did a lot of stuff. Like did he do the Ultimates? Like basically, he did a lot of stuff in the comics. He just moved to DC. It's interesting that he's doing a Marvel film.
Yeah.
But so he's going to be writing Superman for DC from now on. Comics, not movie wise.
Right.
So those two people just seem like people who genuinely want to do this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to save their jobs because they're not part of that machine.
Yeah.
But I think, if you can say, look, we're still in the business of making these movies, then it's harder for Disney to be like, well, you're gone. So yeah, we have to get to Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Do you have the casting up?
Gemma Chan
Right.
is
playing
going to
somebody.
be the Kree Captain Minerva again.
Okay.
I believe that's what it is. Don't kill me. I don't have it in front of me right now.
No one hasn't.
Because we are back in time right now. We're not pacing ourselves well. But Captain Marvel, the Gemma Chan has been casted, which is going to be very, very interesting. I've seen her in some pretty good stuff. And as well as the fact that a recent interview with Captain Marvel screenwriter said that this is going to be a lot more of an action comedy than we expect it to be. And this is why, to me, I'm like, okay, this to me makes the casting of Brie Larson, sorry, so much better. It makes it so much better to me because I love seeing Brie Larson in like the Jump Street movies, as well as her few roles in Community, her few like episodes in Community. She does comedy very, very well, and I think she can. The range of Brie is actually amazing. So for them to be like, this is a comedy action movie more than anything else is fantastic. But the interesting to me is like the more interesting thing to me is that they originally intended Tomb Raider to be an action comedy as well. But they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So we're going to lean heavily into Captain Marvel because she wrote the writer there, Geneva Robertson DeWarrett. Wrote
Say
both.
that 10 times.
Yeah,
fast.
I can't. Those hyphenated names, man, tongue-tied. But yeah, and I think that's fantastic because I've been reading a lot more Captain Marvel source material, and she is a sassy character.
Yeah.
For her to be funny, I'm loving it. Plus, the current streak of like funny in the MCU class action is actually really, really good. As much as I hate on Paul Rudd, I really enjoy the Ant-Man series because it's actually funny to me. And same thing with Thor and the way they're moving towards that, kind of having the really, really serious movies and really, really heartfelt movies like Black Panther. And then there's the fun stuff like Thor now. I think that's really, really cool. We're just exploring different elements of these characters.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We should move on. We are like to the main thing. We have really...
We had a lot more to talk about, but let's get down to Cloverfield Paradox. So, this came out on Netflix.
After the Super Bowl.
After the Super Bowl.
Or during Super Bowl, who knows?
During or after or whatever it was. Go Eagles. But that was the biggest story about this. That was the most exciting thing about this was all of a sudden, oh my God, it's up.
Mm-hmm.
This is cool. And I think I think the distribution and the business model of Netflix and Cloverfield Paradox is much, much more interesting than the actual movie itself.
All right. We'll get into that.
We'll talk about that later for sure.
What is this movie about?
This movie, to me, is nonsense.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I don't like it in monster movies, which is what the Cloverfield franchise has been for a very long time. I don't...
all three of them.
All three of them. Yeah, for a very long time. Still technically accurate. They've been monster movies. And I always love those kind of action, thriller, horror genre stuff where you don't know the origin of something. This creates the origin of it. And I'm like, I don't like it now. Because there's no mystery attached to it anymore. If there are monsters on Earth, I don't... Part of me from a movie standpoint, I don't want to know why they're there. I just want it because that's the whole point of that franchise to me, was that it was high paced the entire time, and then you have Cloverfield 2, which was high paced in a very tight environment, and it was very tense, and that was really, really interesting. This provided that same thing in 2, but wrote it in a way that ruins 1 and 2 because, oh my God, now there's an explanation for this. It's because they try to do a very real world thing, which is let's create unlimited power, and then ended up messing everything up. And to me, it's that element of magic is gone because we this is stuff that we were concerned about with CERN and their Hadron Collider and everything like that, and be like, oh my God, is the smashing of particles together going to create dark matter, and is that going to create a black hole, and is that going to suck up all of Europe and the rest of the world? Those were the things that were going crazy at the time, and then for them to do that in a movie for Cloverfield, I'm just like, this is kind of lazy now.
I don't know that I agree that all three of them are monster movies.
Yeah.
I think the first one definitely.
Yep. First one definitely was.
That's what it's sold as. The second one, and it should be noted that neither of the sequels were written as Cloverfield sequels. Well, the first one is definitely
a monster movie.
thriller. No, it's not a monster movie at
Well,
all.
yeah,
they
thriller.
tag on the monster stuff at the end, and I think that's what sinks the movie.
Yes.
I think everything about it is that interesting mystery box that I know JJ likes of like, is John Goodman telling the truth, or is he just fucking with these people and keeping them a thing? That is what is good about the second movie.
Yes, absolutely.
As soon as she runs out and then she has to fight monsters, you're kind of like, oh, okay, great. I guess it is Cloverfield. And this movie, it's not for me. I was hoping you liked it because I was just like, no, I don't know what's happening. I don't care. So, here's what I would say: so when you take a movie like Inception, everyone knows in broad strokes the rules to Inception, how they go into the dreams, what they're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
You might not know all the finer details. You might even have arguments over how it works. But I feel like everyone can argue from a place of, no, this is what I got of it. I don't know what the rules are in this movie. Like, they're trying to do a particle accelerator type thing, and then I'm like, okay. And then they clash together. But what? Like what? Why does that mean? Or like at one point, Schmidt is like, well, based on what we know, we should be able to go back to our Earth if we do this. And I'm like, how? What? How?
Yeah. See,
how do you know that? Like,
the
how do
science part of it bothers me so much in this movie, and that's when I was like, I followed Baywatch better than this, because immediately after this, I watched Baywatch for some reason.
That's not a good movie, but it's fun.
Not a good
I had
movie,
a good time with it.
Follow it. I had a good time with it. This movie was frustrating in the sense where, to that point, it's like, based on what we know, I'm like, you don't know jack shit.
I don't know that they don't know anything, because everything is being told to me after the fact. Like, they dropped that bomb, like, oh yeah, I killed my parent or my kids because I created them. I'm like, what? Like, why? Like, how is this how I'm learning this? Or like, why am I learning this way? And more so than 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
This one was just filmed as its own thing, and then they tried to do reshoots to add Cloverfield elements. At least by the time they decided they wanted to shoot 10 Cloverfield Lane, like, this will be a Cloverfield thing. But the script was never conceived that way. Yeah. Whereas this movie, they didn't even, that director, which I wanted to support because he is a black person, I was like, I don't even know if he put that Cloverfield monster at the end, or if they just ripped the movie from him and we're like, we're making this a Cloverfield thing.
That's what I felt like the entire thing is like, had it just been like given a different name, not Cloverfield, not
I don't think it would have been a good movie.
It would have been I don't think there would have been hype for this. I don't think there would have been excitement for it. I think it would have been the equivalent of that Ryan Reynolds space movie Life. Yeah. I think it would have been that. Not terrible, but at the same time, not a lot of people being like, oh man, I'm dying to see Life. Because the only time people were like, really, from my perspective, really, really being like, oh my god, did you hear that Life is actually a prequel movie to Venom? Like, that's what got people really excited about it. And they're like, no, what the hell are you talking about? That's not real. To me, they were just like, they saw this, like, this is a movie to me that were like, okay, this is good. This is a cool concept. The execution didn't do too well, but here's how we can fix it. We can add a Cloverfield name to it and add this one scene at the very end, and then your destruction, your damage around the planet, it looks very, very similar to what happened in Cloverfield 1 anyways. Bing, bang, boom.
So here's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know at what point they interject. Like, my sense is this guy filmed a movie, and then they were like, let's turn this into a Cloverfield thing, and then reshoots happen.
Yeah,
I think that's because I don't know how much, and we haven't even talked about like what happens in this movie. I guess it is just the one thing. Like, a team is on the Cloverfield. That's what it's called.
I
feel like the spaceship is called the Cloverfield.
The Shepherd.
No, the Shepherd's on the Cloverfield.
No,
because they're trying to. The Shepherd is.
The Shepherd is the spaceship.
Okay.
Cloverfield is just the universe in these movies take place.
At one point, they specifically say, we're on the Cloverfield. I just watched it before you got here.
See, that's the thing. I feel like that's when the two parallel dimensions. That's where like, oh, in Dimension 1 it was called the Shepherd, and then Dimension 2 is called the Cloverfield or something like that, because it was clearly two different teams coming together. Even like, Jensen, Elizabeth Debicki, her character was like, "Don't you remember me?" to Hamilton, the main actress, Gugu.
I never want to. Mbathara. I know how to say her last name. Mbathara. Yeah.
Mbathara. Thank you so much for that. They had that moment. It was like, don't you know this? Like, I'm your best friend. What are you doing up here? You're the civilian thing and all this kind of stuff back and forth. That to me was slightly interesting. But at the same time,
they had good ideas that
weren't. It just wasn't executed well.
Because what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what anything is called really, but the idea is that their worlds have merged.
Yes.
I don't know why, really. Like, I get that he says the particles bump together, but I was just like, well, then why does this ship look like it wants to kill them? Like, it was trying to kill Chris O'Dowd.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anyone's real names in these movies. You got
I'm
Jensen
on right now. Mundy.
And Hamilton. Mundy. Okay.
I started calling them by their countries that they were representing.
Ireland.
Yeah, like
the ship was trying to kill Ireland.
And like everything like that, because I was just like, they didn't do a good job of establishing the names.
They say their names all the time.
They do, and it's so dumb to me because I'm like, okay, the names are on the uniform, but at the same time, Chris O'Dowd's character never wore the jacket. He just wore a T-shirt.
He did have his. I remember because I was like, "Wait, did she take his jacket?" Because he did have he had the Irish flag on his jacket. No, I think, you could have had a movie about like, oh, the ship is turning on them. You could have had a movie about should we trust Jensen, but like she kind of gets sidelined for most of the movie until she turns.
Yep. And
if you know anything about that actress, you're like, yeah, of course she turns.
Of course
she's always the bad guy.
Yeah. And I love her as the bad guy. I really enjoyed Elizabeth Debicki as the bad guy.
Maybe she's not the bad guy in Great Gatsby. Maybe she's just a girlfriend. I remember she liked golf in the Great Gatsby.
Are you talking about the new Gatsby?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that movie. And
it's not good.
It was not good. And
I'm just saying, I think that's the only time I've seen her not be the bad guy.
Right. In which case that was a throwaway role. It wasn't anything.
But I think yeah, and then there was like the worms are in that guy. I'm like, okay, so that's not the ship trying to kill. That actually is part of what they were talking about things colliding, and then the worms can end up in him.
Yep. And then the arm switch and all that kind of stuff, which is so weird to me because this was the thought that I had was, okay, if two worlds are colliding, if we're accepting the fact that it's just two and not like multiple worlds colliding,
which I don't know why it wouldn't be multiple, but
the
movie wanted to focus on the two worlds.
The two worlds only, right? I wanted multiple worlds because I'm sitting here and I'm literally thinking the entire time during this movie, I'm like, you established that two worlds collide. So am I to believe that Elizabeth Debicki, Jensen's character, lives in a world where monsters are fully real and exist, and that they're at world war in that world, but not fighting the monsters? They're fighting each other. Humans are fighting each other, but not the monsters. Like that. To me,
that's why I also didn't agree with your thing about they explained everything. I was like, they gave a line of dialogue that's like, if this happens, then demons will come out, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, that was the thing. That was the.
But I still don't know where those demons come from. Exactly. I don't know if it's her world. I don't know that it's. I think it's just like they put that. That is definitely. I do know that that guy Donald Logue. Anyway, he plays Bullock in Gotham, and he's been in Ghost Rider, and he's been in a bunch of things. He's a Canadian actor. Yeah. His stuff is filmed specifically to make it a Cloverfield movie. Yes. I don't think those actors at any point knew they were going to be in a movie with that guy.
Yeah, because he's the constant.
Yeah, because he doesn't. They don't. I've just realized. Yeah, you're just watching news footage of him. They're never interacting with him.
Yep.
So he is being filmed specifically for the Cloverfield time.
Yes,
but
and maybe that could be an additional filming that they put in.
Yeah,
to do this.
But like. That doesn't explain anything to me. I'm just like, oh, okay.
To me, it's just like, so am I to understand that character is the only one in the entire Cloverfield franchise that actually knows what's going on?
And they kept saying the paradox. If you believe in the paradox, I'm like, what is that?
What are
like,
you talking about,
jumped in at a point where I'm like, okay, this got too clever because I get that they're like trying to be like, you jump in the middle and you don't know where you are and you'll find your bearings. But I didn't think that anything really found its bearings.
Nothing ever found its bearings. That's to me what was so great about the Cloverfield franchise. It's like it takes you on that ride and you're like, this is so cool.
Yeah, like
and then
both movies I don't like Cloverfield franchise, but like I at least liked the part of the second one that was the three characters interacting. And that kind of jumps you into the middle of stuff, but you do find your bearings because they can focus on those three characters.
You never find it here.
And I don't think they focused on even the team on the ship because they have to keep going to Hamilton's husband, Michael, and he was having his own adventure with that girl. Yeah. And he's like, oh, you got to find her parents. I can't text them. And I'm like, what?
And that to me
why are we focusing on this?
Yeah, to me, I'm just like, what? Like,
just for the end where he can be like, don't send them back. I'm like, dude, they're already on their way. This isn't as dramatic as you want it to be because I can see they already left and I already want them to leave where they are, so it doesn't really matter.
And what's the point of them staying up there? That ship's actively trying to kill them, or like
I don't know if it is. It just seems
and it's to me, it's really, really weird because. And I'm actually quite now that I'm saying this out loud or thinking out loud. I'm grateful that they didn't say they didn't have more of an explanation as to why things keep shifting over and over and over again. So like I would have loved for like originally I thought, hey, I would have loved if someone came back and said like, oh my god, when this happened it created a ripple effect, and now this is what the ripple effect is. Every time that like a pebble in a pond, every time those ripples are getting wider, those ripples are colliding with other ripples from other things, and then that's when they're colliding together. But I'm like, no, that would have been too good of a explanation for them to know in the heat of the moment to be like, this is what's happened. Like nobody should have known that. And the idea too that it was like, I think when they fused into the second universe, Jensen's universe was like 150 years ahead of the other one kind of.
I didn't even catch that.
And I'm just like, what the hell? Or at least their countries had been at war for 150 years or something like that together. I don't know what's going on. And it was such a weird, confusing movie to me.
Were they? Because I feel like even in their universe, the countries was at war. Because that's the only reason you can have that tension because because Jensen can come in and be like, don't trust Schmidt. He's withholding information so that Germany can advance on Russia. And that's what the Russian was saying in their universe was like, hey man, you're trying to stall so that Germany can do whatever they're trying to do to Russia.
Yep.
I didn't get the sense that they were advanced or anything. I just thought it was like
in the original universe,
in his universe, Schmidt isn't a bad person, and clearly he is a bad person, or a matter of perspective. He isn't trying to actively.
He wasn't the
sabotage. He's not trying to sabotage the mission in the universe we start in, and he is in the second one. Maybe for good reasons. Who knows? We don't really know anything about what's going on in the war.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think your take is invalid. I just feel like that's what's wrong with the movie. Is it's so like scattered that like I do feel like they forgot to tie up certain things or like solidify things because there's so much room for us to be like, oh, like. Well, for me, I'm just like, I don't know what's happening, and you have this like, no, they're in advance because this is happening and this happening, and I'm just like, oh, sure.
Yeah, and the other issue too is the reason why I liked Cloverfield 1 and 2 is in many horror kind of in like suspense thriller kind of movies, you're attached to a small group of people and you're following that story.
Right.
With this, you weren't ever really attached. To your point, you're never really attached to the crew on the Shepherd. You're getting pulled from Earth to this all over the place, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, that you're not following the singular storyline anymore. And then because the great thing about Cloverfield 1 and 2 is the singular storyline exists, you keep going, you keep going, and then it takes you through everything, and then all of a sudden, boom, the world has expanded. Versus this one, it feels like the world has expanded without establishing the group of people together, and then it's going back to Earth, and boom, it's like the expansion isn't as big anymore because like, oh, there's a monster that we clearly can see. Versus Cloverfield 1, the reason why it worked so well is like, oh, for the whole time it was like the Jaws thing where like in the original Jaws, they never remade it. Why did I say original?
Well, you just mean not the sequels.
Yeah, not the sequels. In the Jaws 1, the scariest parts when you saw the fin of the shark. You didn't see the shark itself. You saw the tension of it, and that's what Cloverfield 1 did so well until the very, very end, and they did that very, very well, I feel. This, it tried to do the same thing, but I'm like, you were never teasing monsters throughout the whole thing. You were teasing arms that moved with their own thought process.
That's what I'm saying. This was a different movie. They like they did to Cloverfield or Cloverfield Lane, they tagged on a monster element, but they're three different movies, right?
They're three different movies, absolutely.
This one is definitely closer to life and Alien, not Alien.
Yes,
but like of like this crew and there's tension because you don't know what's going on, or even Jaws of like more being like stir crazy on a ship and there's outside forces that could tear this group apart. But they didn't want to focus on that. And again, I don't know at what point the director lost his movie.
Yeah, true. Because there's elements of this that don't make sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because when they were trying to make it a Cloverfield movie, they were just like, whatever, man, to this scene. Yeah. And like, who knows? Like, obviously the movie wasn't good enough for them to just put it out on its own.
I think so, yeah.
Clear, even though it got such a great cast. And I was like, oh, man, what's her name? Zizi Zhang is back.
Ziyi,
yeah. I was like, wow,
I do love the cast.
She's here, and I'm glad she didn't have to speak in English.
Yes.
Like, they let her speak, and everyone else got to. That Daniel Bruhl guy can just speak every language, I guess. Because in Glorious Bastards, he speaks English, French, and German. Yeah. In this, I'm assuming he's speaking Mandarin.
He must have worked for like the UN interpreter or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it was like, you know what? I'm actually a good-looking guy. I was like, the whole time, I'm just like, you're definitely going to die, Zemo. What are you doing?
I can't believe he didn't die.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he didn't die. That was the entire time. I'm like, clearly, what's her face? Hamilton is going to live in this. They're following her the entire time.
I thought they were all going to die. I thought they were going to do like Rogue One and just kill everyone.
I knew that a couple
like
people were going to survive.
I just thought the ship would die, not everyone on Earth.
I honest to God thought Tam, Zhang Ziyi's character, would have stayed alive. But she had one of the coolest death scenes I've ever seen in my life.
I like her death scene.
Awesome.
But even then, like, they didn't even focus on like the idea that like we can just have a movie about cool, and maybe that was the original movie. Just like this ship turns on its crew, and you're gonna watch cool deaths for each thing, which not my style of movie, but at least that would have been a focused thing.
Because that would have been like Gravity, but like sci-fi, in a sense.
Like Gravity.
Well, I mean, like the Sandra Bullock one, where I mean, because the ship's kind of fighting back, but that's like because things go wrong. Yeah, and that's
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, versus this is like, ooh, we messed with the space-time continuum, or did we? And then things are happening that don't make sense. Like, am I to understand that there's a universe where limbs can fall off, be detached from the central nervous system, and still be able to capable of movement, thought, and energy metabolism? Like that is,
or that didn't hurt him at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, this made no sense whatsoever. It's like, okay, your arm disappeared. It's exposed to the air. It's not like it's cauterized like a lightsaber, arm limb thing where it's like, oh, okay, that's why it's not bleeding. Your arm is just gone. The flesh is open. You can see the bone, and there's no blood. Really? Come on,
I also
man.
didn't know why the doctor didn't want to cut open the worm guy.
I know, right?
He's like, nope, can't do it.
Why would you not want to perform an autopsy?
It seems like this is your, not one job, but this is your wheelhouse. Yeah. They're not like, hey, we need you to go undo the screws and do this. It was like, can you do an autopsy, please? Because we...
the whole idea of like, oh my god, okay, so the scene where Jensen is fused into the wall, or in the wall...
It seems like she should have way more holes. I know they cover up her hands.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
It was like through her shoulder, through her legs.
Yeah.
And I know at one scene she walks with a limp, but it never really comes up ever again. It
comes back, and I'm just like, this is dumb. How are you expecting me to believe that she healed that fast? But
this is the thing, I don't know if they're just in a world where they could heal that fast. Exactly. Because they don't, like, there is no world building. It's just you're already in the world.
And then there's the stupid thing of like, she's fused into the lines, and then they make a very good argument of why they can't cut the lines, and then they cut the lines
right away.
And they cut the lines immediately. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? You're not even going to question the fact that, how did this person get onto this ship without docking?
I'm going to be honest with you. If I were, I'm assuming the American was the leader, David Oyelowo. Whoa.
I have no idea.
Keel. His name is Keel.
Keel.
I feel like if I were him, I'd be like, just cut her out. I don't want to listen to this person yell all the time.
I'd just be like, no, just kill her then.
Yeah, I'd still want to cut her out of there.
Dying. She's like, there's things going through. If we cut the lines, then the rest of the ship could fall apart.
Yeah,
that
but
means
nothing-
we're dead. That just doesn't make any sense.
They were
to me.
fine though. See,
It was so dumb, so dumb. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, there's a gun on board, a futuristic gun that nobody even recognizes, and I to understand that in a pure oxygen environment, that a combustion from the gunshot is not going to ignite the whole station.
yeah, but it's not. It wasn't a regular gun. It was a
Well,
space gun.
And that's the weird part to me. Is like, we live in a world where you need a space gun. Like, how did you develop a space gun?
He made it on the 3D printer.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's a straight up scene. There's a straight up scene where he goes because he's going crazy and he makes a gun because he's like, I'm gonna hold these people hostage.
I legit did not pay attention to that part because at that point I'm starting to check out at this movie. I'm like playing.
I started checking out the end, but I made a point of putting my phone away and putting my hands under my legs because I needed to like.
You know what? I needed to do that too because I missed that part.
I tried twice to watch this film and I just was like, I'm putting away my phone because I don't like this is not grabbing me.
Yeah.
So I actually watched the movie all the way. He created the gun.
Oh, okay.
And it was a space gun.
Okay, so I have one. Actually, not. I shouldn't say one. The biggest flaw I have with it is the fact that they just cut her out and not even understand who she is. And I get it. It's like, okay, she's got pipes running through her. She fused into the wall. But are we going to ignore the monster like noise that they heard? Like, what the hell? There was like, oh, the wall was going crazy, and then you hear this crazy monster noise, and then you get Jensen, and you're like, what the hell was that? Like, where the entire time I'm like, oh, there's something on the ship. This is going to get good now. And then no, it's like, oh, there's worms.
I think at the end of the movie,
Yeah.
you realize Jensen was the monster.
Yeah. Oh.
Philosophy. Not a great movie.
No, it's not.
But I don't know.
But like I said,
that's the like. Obviously, a mediocre movie got tampered with, and then we got less than mediocre.
Well, we got a mediocre movie that had what I would say is promising concepts.
Right.
Because of the fact that there's a lot of movies with promising concepts that didn't get pulled off properly. One of the movies that are going to be remade right now, Logan's Run, is one of those movies to me. Because when I watched the original, I'm like, this is so cheesy. How did it? But the concept of it is so cool.
Yeah.
That I'm like, yes, this deserves a remake. And whether or not it goes to film, I personally think it should be an HBO TV show. Because that would be so much better. As opposed to a 2-hour movie. I think the concept in itself deserves that kind of consideration.
Sure. I'm never really a fan of let's make a TV show out of a movie because if you've already proved you can tell the story concisely, I don't need you to like people who actually read Game of Thrones and like it don't like that they're trying to go away from the book now and like try their hand at like padding out stuff. But and I think that's what happens when you get especially a successful show is you try to pad it out because now you need to keep going unless you go in being like we're doing 3 seasons and that's it, or we're doing a mini series, that's it.
Right.
And I think that probably visually you think Logan's Run is cheesy, but I still think the story is solid and that
the story is definitely solid.
Any remake you do would just be to upgrade the visuals.
Yes.
And maybe some acting choices that were made. Yep. But like I wouldn't be like, oh, now I need to see like 10 more hours of this. I'd be like, oh yeah, that was a great story.
Well,
because I think it's 2 different media, right? Like
it's definitely 2 different formats of storytelling. But I mean, like from the aspect of like, and that's why I think it like if they're going to make it a TV series, that's why like it would work in the sense where now we're following the people that run away and their story.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a remake. It would just be like we're expanding this universe.
We're being like, okay, we're gonna take the concept of the original and expand it this way as opposed to this. That's why I was like, this would be kind of cool because I like runaway, like hiding kind of stuff. Obviously not Walking Dead because that's essentially.
I feel like also Prison Break kind of fell off once it became Manhunt.
Yeah, a little bit. That kind of stuff is interesting for me to see, but at the same time, that it's. And I guess the reason why I want to see it is because I'm like, when I watched The Island, I was like, this is a cool concept. It's very similar to Logan's Run, and I like the visuals a lot more. It'd be interesting to see Logan's Run redone this way
by Michael Bay.
Yep,
got it.
No,
so
coming back to
you wanted to talk about the distribution of this and the marketing of it through Netflix.
Absolutely. Like I said, the one thing that I feel this is so the distribution of this movie was so much more interesting to me than the actual movie itself, in the sense where it's like the Netflix style of everything like this, especially for this movie, it was just like, boom, we're just going to drop it. No, obviously Netflix does promo stuff because a couple of our upcoming episodes are going to be Jessica Jones, because that's
Right.
coming out March 8th, and they're hyping that up a little bit. They're doing some promo stuff, but this was just dropped in there. So I don't know if this is like, hey, we believe that this movie is actually going to do well enough, which it kind of did from a viewing standpoint. It did get a lot of people watching the movie immediately, and a lot of views, and it's getting talked about, which is good publicity for Netflix. So, but I don't know if they're like, Netflix made that decision of like, let's just drop this movie, from like, we're so confident that this movie will do well, or they looked at it realistically. They're like, I don't think this movie's going to do that well, so let's just drop it and not waste any more money marketing. But the idea now with Netflix and how movie distribution is, and this has been one of those debates in the cinema world for a while, and you and I talk about this quite a bit, where what is kind of stopping Netflix from taking over all of cinema, and like the idea of going to the theater, that theater experience that you and I love so much, and a lot of people hold near and dear, of being like, let's go to the movies, let's watch this movie and have this experience, this popcorn, this family event and everything like that. It's threatening that industry. But at the same time, and this is where I think you'll be excited about this, because I saw some recent data that actually proves that that's not actually happening as much as I originally thought it would. Is in the sense where Netflix, when they started streaming about a decade ago, the majority of their model was focused on movies and then TV shows,
Right.
and now what's happened to, so the U.S. library in 2010 had 6,755 film titles with 530 TV series available to users. Now, not a lot of those TV series were Netflix originals, which is primarily what Netflix is
I would imagine
driving
none
for.
of them were.
Yeah, like maybe one or two.
House
but
of Cards is the
House
first
of Cards
original.
probably was the original. Maybe like the Arrested Development soft reboot. No, like
Yeah, but that all happens way after
that
2010.
happens way afterwards, right? But then cut to 2018, under the entire time, because Netflix has, because of its distribution model, it's not the same as film, so it doesn't have to give us the same figures, everything else, like with Bright and all these kind of things. They don't have to be like, yeah, we had this many million views in this period of time, comparing it to box office stuff. So it didn't have to do that. So I always thought that, with decrease in viewership, or the different trends in how people are watching movies now, to your point, where like 10 years ago, movies would stay in theaters for about 3 to 6 months, and now it's just like limited to a 2 to 3 month engagement, and then direct to DVD, and then to pump out more as we go.
Yeah.
It's very interesting stuff. But what happened with the 93% film, 7% TV split in 2010 is dramatically changed to a 72% film, 28% TV split in 2018. So right now, what Netflix has definitely done is it's definitely impacted the type of movies that are going to be shown in cinema now. So the theory being that Netflix is going to take on a lot more of the lower budget budget.
I don't
kind
think
of stuff.
that you're making the right correlation though, because it's not impacting. It is a new venue for people to put stuff. But it's not, because yes, Netflix is more in the States, because we didn't really have it as this. Well, we might have, but in the States, Netflix was known as the place where you actually get stuff mailed to you, and it was mostly movies. No one wants to be mailed The Sopranos disc by disc, realistically. Not saying that didn't happen, but that wasn't the idea. So once they moved to strictly online, their whole thing is binging. Netflix, until I know, can be a movie, but the idea that you're binging stuff, which would always mean that that's TV related.
Yes.
Like if you think about it, you probably could sit there and watch like a season of Community on Netflix. Not that it's on there anymore. But if someone told you like, let's watch the 3 Captain America movies, you're like, well, I don't know about that. Like I would,
man. Even when someone says to me, let's watch one Captain America,
like, because you're thinking about it as like, this 2-hour block of time, even though you could probably, I'm not saying anyone would, but you could probably spend 3 hours watching a TV show if it's like.
That's been the irony of my viewing decisions for my entire life, is that I have no problem committing to a season of television versus committing to a movie. To me is such a bigger mental task. And
that's
like,
why I don't think their MO is like, now people come to us for the movies because their whole thing is, if you look at the way the movies they have, they can tell you, our Adam Sandler movies do whatever, like they're good for us. But their whole MO is like, you're coming to us to watch the TV shows, and now it's the TV shows we make. And the movies they make aren't well reviewed. Well, I don't know, like they don't ever really have to give you the numbers on how many people are actually watching the stuff they're saying. They can say it does well for us, but we don't know what their benchmark is for what doing well is. Other than stuff like Mudbound, which wasn't their movie to begin with, and Cloverfield wasn't their movie to begin with. Right. The stuff that is actually coming from them and made for them is kind of middle of the road stuff. Because they're kind of like, whatever, we can get big stars. People might look at it. We might get that first weekend or the first day it drops a bunch of people, but it won't matter because people will stay for the bingeable TV shows.
Yes. And
I think that's why I haven't seen enough to make me be like, oh man, they're changing things, because it's still up to the like something like Annihilation. It wasn't like they were like, oh no, what do we do? Because realistically they could have, and I'd seen it already, they could have been like, we're not releasing Annihilation, it's going to be on iTunes. It's just, now it's on Netflix instead of iTunes, or it's on all of them. It's just another place for them to drop something they don't think will do well in
Absolutely.
theaters.
And I think to your point, because my original stance was, yes, they're changing everything, this is going to be crazy, but now that I've seen the data recently from these reports that they actually finally pushed out stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, then the cinema franchise thing is going to remain the way it is for big budget movies and Oscar contenders, most likely, until like the Academy and everything like that starts to change their opinion on the distribution aspect of everything like that. So, and this is very interesting.
Well, it can't be considered for an Oscar unless it's been in theaters.
Yes, which is like why when you and I reviewed Beasts of No Nation, that we were like, this is an incredible movie. This is Oscar-worthy movie, but it got snubbed by the Academy because of that. So, when I say it's going to change things now, I do believe it's going to change things for consideration for award shows and all that kind of stuff, because it does demand it, knowing that they had Beast of No Nation as such a prime example of what Netflix is capable of. And then you have stuff like Bright, where, and this is very interesting because Joel Edgerton,
Edgerton?
I don't know how to pronounce it.
I don't know if it's Edgerton or Edgerton. We're giving both. We're giving both options. You can pick one.
Yeah. So David Ayer's Bright, obviously, we didn't get to review because it came out so between the.
I think it would have sounded a lot like this.
It would have sounded very much like this, but at the same time, it's a big budget movie. I mean, David Ayer was given $90 million to do that, and the rating was 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that that's a good representation of everything, because Paddington is like one of the best movies reviewed on Rotten Tomatoes.
But people legitimately like that movie.
They do, but at the same time, apples to oranges, I guess, in this situation. But for Bright, Egerton. Joel, I'm just gonna say Joel,
the orc.
Yeah, he revealed that the first weekend there were 11 million views of that movie. Whatever it was, it amounted to about $100 million plus opening weekend, which is huge. You and I would be talking about that for sure, but because we didn't have those stats.
Think that's a false argument, though. Like, you don't know that those same people would have gone to the theater to see that. You can't monetize that. Like, you can't be like 11, like, because you also don't know how many people finished that movie. You don't know, you just know that. Like, what if someone accidentally clicked on it because that's the first thing that you open up Netflix and you're like, what? No, I didn't mean to do this. There's that stuff, and just you don't know that those people actually were going to go to the theater. Right. It's a lot easier that if it's shipped into your into your living room.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I mean with this distribution model, is in the sense where a lot of people, like 11 million views that first weekend.
And it's also a Will Smith movie.
Yes. It's a movie.
He has his fan base regardless. So like, yeah, it
was an interesting concept of a movie. It was a very interesting concept for a movie. But to your point of, hey, I'm already paying $8 a month for Netflix.
Lucky
To
you.
go to a theater would cost me $15 for one ticket. My monthly subscription at Netflix allows me to watch this already. It's an easier decision at that point. So those are confounding variables as to those numbers. And like, if it did launch in theaters, I'm confident that 11 million views would not be the case whatsoever. Because if people are going through that thought process of being like, oh, I got to invest more money into seeing this. How excited was I? Should I wait?
A lot
for
of people
this
say,
kind
"I'll
stuff?
just wait till it's on Netflix."
Exactly.
Like that is a thing. Like, yeah, people at my work, when they gave out vouchers to go see Black Panther, and they were kind of like, "Oh, I'll watch it now." But they were like, even with all the press it's doing, people were like, "I'll just wait till it's going out on Netflix."
Yeah.
Well, I'm fine.
Because there's
Like,
still negative aspects about the movie going experience.
But I also know those are people that may not have gone anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you just,
they're not as motivated as you and I are.
Yeah, it's an easier market to grab when it's like, it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix, and I'm like, okay,
I can
cool.
watch that on, like, I know people, like, I don't know if it's still available, but there's plugins you can have where I'm like, I can just watch. Oh yeah, they have it. That you can have offline viewing. So I can watch Bright on my way to work or something. I don't need to. It actually can go with me where I'm going.
Yeah.
I don't need to be somewhere specific and pay more money than I'm already paying.
You're absolutely right. And then there's the also added element of like, oh my God, now I have to go out. I have to go buy popcorn. I have to put pants on. I can't like pause the movie to go to the washroom if I want it. And if I'm going on a Friday night, I'm exhausted from my work week and all that kind of stuff. So, and this has happened to me more than one occasion where I've fallen asleep in the theater and I've been snoring so loudly that my buddy like nudges me like, dude, come on, wake up. And like that's the kind of nonsense that goes. Like, I had to rewatch the first Captain America in theaters because I fell asleep during the second act because I was so tired that Friday night. And so this to me was like, okay, this is cool. What it does do in terms of changing the movie business, I think is really exciting. Is it gives more filmmakers the ability to tell stories now, because the funding and everything like that is different, but it's like a different model of distribution where it's like a lot of people...
I still don't see that, because what has happened is it's more... I mean, you could go to Netflix and be like, can I make a movie?
Yeah.
Yes. But in most of the cases we're seeing, it's people being like, oh, we don't want this anymore, and dropping it to Netflix. So like someone like Alex Garland, who made Ex Machina, which everyone loved,
right,
for his movie not to be shown in anywhere but Canada, the States, and I want to say the UK.
I want to say UK too, because of Tom
but
Holland.
nowhere else. No, I'm talking about Annihilation.
Oh, Annihilation, I see.
For them to make that decision, they're like, ugh, nope, bad test scores. We're dropping it on Netflix so no one will see your vision in the way you intended it.
So your kind of way of saying this is Netflix is almost like the discount bin for like DVD sales.
But that was my initial argument, is that it's just a straight to DVD option now. It's not necessarily like yes, you could try and pitch your thing to just Netflix, but like think about directors like Christopher Nolan who are like, no, like,
well, Nolan's a very different.
But what I'm saying is like,
he's a hardcore traditionalist,
right? But like, would you want to be like, okay, I guess I'll acquiesce to I'm going to be watched on like just on people's TVs and phones instead of being able to reach for the Christopher Nolan style of have my movies on the big screen?
I think it depends on the type of filmmaker you are and the status you have as a filmmaker in the Hollywood.
Well, let's just
genre.
Assume the status is you're trying to break out.
If you're trying to break out, then yes, it would be less than ideal. Because I feel like, especially with like,
I guess why I wanted to use Alex Garland is he was like cusp in terms of like people like Dredd. He didn't direct it, but he wrote it, and people loved Ex Machina.
Yes,
but those were movies that got to be seen on the big screen.
Right.
So when he does his movie
and
Annihilation,
it's a step back.
that he wants he's not a Christopher Nolan. And maybe not even like tied to shooting on film instead of digital, but he's still like, when you're a director, you've got this vision and of how it's going to look. And then for someone to tell you like I don't know when he got that information, but whatever point it's after he's made the movie, like, like, well, we'll be in 3 markets,
because
it's going to Netflix.
And then the idea of like, and I saw a recent interview from one of the directors that had like a bigger budget thing on Netflix. They're just like, it's different. Like because he said something, and I really wish I knew who this director was. He said something to the degree of like, you know, as a filmmaker, as a director, a part of it, of making that movie is looking forward to the big red carpet, that premiere, that whole, like, everyone's making a big deal out of it. But you don't get that with Netflix. It's just like, oh, if anything, you get a couple of like media, like advertisements on like social media and all that kind of stuff. Come into Netflix, and then emails to like, you might want to check this out on Netflix, and then having the feature on Netflix. But it's not, you don't get that red carpet, big grandiose reveal anymore of like, ooh, this is premiere stuff. So it is creating another tier of movie making, and I would argue above direct to DVD. It's definitely above direct to DVD.
What makes it above that?
I think the budget that they put into it, because $90 million to put into
but
right.
Is an up-and-coming director going to get a Will Smith? Like, that $90 million is based on Will Smith's involvement.
And David Ayer. Well, I mean...
I don't think it's based on David Ayer.
It's more based on Will Smith than it is on
Will Smith can be like, my boy
sure.
David Ayer is going to be on this movie.
Yeah.
I don't...
He's got that.
Or, sure. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's still direct to DVD, because it's like, they can make their decision financially to be like, we're fine with this just going to Netflix because we're going to make our money based on what you pay us. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's not the same situation as someone who's like, I guess I'm just going to go to Netflix because no one else is going to like pay for this movie.
Well, see, the thing is,
and they're not going to get a $90 million budget, is what I'm saying.
Like, I feel like a movie maker would never say like, let's go directly to Netflix, but a TV maker would, in the sense where
but that's different.
You're
always going to be on that screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea of like TV flocking to Netflix, having that binge watching ability and everything like that, I think is a good thing. But then the idea, like what I originally thought being so fear driven, was like, oh my god, Netflix is really going to take away all these different things, and I'm not going to be able to go to a movie and like make it a bit more of an occasion than I would of being like, hey, it's Friday night, I'm just having a few beers and a little bit of bourbon. Yeah, let's watch Bright. Why the hell not? I like when you and I choose movies to review, you and I are like having these discussions of like which movie is going to be good, what's going to fit in our brand and all that kind of stuff. And then we're like, okay, we did the pre-ticket sales, and then we're looking forward to it, and then we're looking at the production kind of rumors. We haven't been able to do that with any kind of Netflix movie yet, because it doesn't follow with the Netflix model. They don't have to disclose the same things. Yeah. Which is what's going to make it a little bit more frustrating, in the sense where if they do decide to develop more, so let's say, for example,
here's why you don't have to worry about this. Mm-hmm. Our brand is based primarily on stuff like Star Wars and
for sure.
comic book movies.
Yeah. Big budget stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's no one's going like, we're going to go straight to Netflix with like Captain Marvel 2. Yeah, but they're going to be doing the full rollout because of what you need to accomplish and how much more you can monetize something that's on screens. Yes, I would imagine Netflix is a one-time payment. There's no real back end on a Netflix thing where Netflix doesn't have to tell anyone how they're doing or how that translates into more money after the fact for them.
One-time deal from I see what you mean, from like the filmmaker and the actors'
studio,
contracts and studio
that's
contracts.
Like,
and all that
you have $90 million, go for it.
Yeah, and then this would be that's a very, I never even thought about that. I'd be like, actors, this is what, because like in that sense where Robert Downey Jr. famously on Avengers negotiated a percentage on top of his salary was nuts. I don't think any actor or any person can do that.
Well, Jack Nicholson did it with Batman.
No, I mean in a Netflix movie.
Oh, okay.
So if it's going like, Will Smith, you're starring in Netflix. This is what we can offer you is $50 million to do this. And then Will Smith is all like, hey, what about percentages? I like percentages. Like, we don't work like that.
Well, we don't. What I'm saying is we don't know because they don't have to give that kind of information. But what I'm saying is, to me, that's how Netflix probably makes more money, is just like, like we sell information to advertisers and subscription-based stuff, but we're not in the business of like giving you percentages after the fact. Yes, once this happened. Yep. And so that's why I don't think there's going to be like a bit. Maybe someone will come up with something different, but until you can get to that place where that back end deal type stuff can happen, Netflix isn't like taking over. It is a like you're going direct to DVD because what we're deciding is we just need the money that Netflix is willing to give us to take Cloverfield off our hands,
right?
And that's that.
And I think it'll be very, very interesting once we get to the point where the Academy changes its perspective on streaming services and everything like that. And being
Mudbound was nominated, so
it was. So they are starting to change. I mean, the Academy is starting to change many, many things at one time too. So this is arguably not the most the most important thing for me with the Academy. I'm like, hey, let's get some more people of color, some more representation and diversity amongst your Academy and all that kind of stuff. That to me is more important than being like, hey, why don't you take a look at Beast of No Nations again? Because that was like 2 years after the fact. It's done now. It was snubbed. You and I will continue to be like, yeah, that's not fair. But at the same time, hopefully going forward, they're a little bit more receptive to it. But like I said, not priority whatsoever. The Academy's got a lot more to figure out than this.
Yeah.
In my opinion. All right. So talking about Cloverfield Paradox, what's your rating here?
5.5.
Oh, I'm giving it a 4.
Excellent. I mean, it wasn't offensive enough for me to be like, I'm mad at this movie, but it just wasn't good. So
I was decently mad at the movie.
I think you also like Cloverfield. I already knew I wasn't going to like it.
I do like Cloverfield a lot more than the average person.
I did not like the first movie, and so like if the fact that they're like, we're really tying this in, I was like, I already know what I'm going to get out of this.
Yeah. To me, the first one was like, good. Ooh, this is what Blair Witch could have been if it was good. I did not like Blair Witch.
I don't think I like that either, but I'm not a horror fan, and that's
why I love horror.
I also thought Cloverfield was weird for reasons we can get to off mic. But the second one was good because it was that contained story, and there was room for you to like lean into it because you were like, oh my goodness, like what is happening, or is that this, or is this? Whereas I don't think the other two movies really had that.
And to my point about horror and thriller, now they gave us a reason for, not a good reason, but they gave us a reason for why this stuff is happening now. And I'm like, now I hate it. Now that there's an origin aspect of it. Now Cloverfield Paradox to me is the origin story. Or the prequel, so to speak, to Cloverfield.
Well, it's definitely a prequel. I don't know if it's an origin story because, like, what more did you learn?
Not origin, because I mean, in terms of origin, if it was to say an origin story, it would be that guy. What's his name? Bullock. I can call him Bullock. It would be like, ooh, how did he figure this out? That would be an origin story. But at the same, this prequel is a better term for this. It is a prequel, and that's why I hate it because it explains the horror aspect. I don't like that whatsoever, unless it's a psychological thing.
I guess what I'm saying is, how is it explaining anything other than they opened up a portal?
Now I know how monsters got to the Earth.
But what did you think happened?
I don't care.
Oh, well then if you don't care, what does it matter to you?
Now that I have a reason that they cemented in the canon aspect of it, now that I can't be like, what about this theory? What about
we can talk about it off mic because it doesn't seem, it honestly doesn't seem like a big deal. Like it's not like it was like because this person did this, and they needed to get back at this person, so they set this monster on that. It's like a door opened and they got in. Great. See, that doesn't explain anything. It's like it doesn't explain anything. But you're just like, oh, they got in through a door.
Because the funny thing is,
but you know why they are the way they are. You don't know what they want to accomplish. True. You just know a bunch of monsters are there, which you knew in the first movie.
But the fun thing was, like, I had this hyper convoluted idea in my head. I'm like, ooh, what if the Cloverfield Paradox is boom, 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 affiliated with Pacific Rim? Because I'm like, ooh, it's kind of like how George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, we were like, let's put E.T. in the Star Wars canon. I'm like, that's a fun little thing, a little nod. And like after the fact that the Cloverfield franchise is done, and after Pacific Rim was done, Del Toro was like, hey, guys, what do you think of this idea? This is what really happened.
Excellent.
And I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. They took that away from me, and that's what I don't like.
That's too bad.
Yep. Not a good reason, but it's my reason.
Yeah, I mean, you can't fault. I can't fault you for that. That's
that's just what's going on.
Unfortunately, go for it.
Anyways,
you could still write that movie, man.
Yeah, I should definitely write that as a Reddit kind of. Oh, that's a blog post. Because I'm still waiting to drop my first blog post on TDF.
Yeah. Speaking of TDFeverything.com, you can go there /SpoiledRotten, see how to get in touch with us on Instagram, on how to subscribe to us on all the various things, how to review us.
Yep.
All of that is there. And please go to dorkshelf.com so you can see other great podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. They're
I
fantastic.
honestly swore I was going to read. I'm going to do this. You can keep saying goodbye to people
and
because
I'm going to say goodbye to you guys. But what
give
I'm
love to some more podcasts on the Dork Shelf Network.
To our listeners right now, I'm going to have my blog post, my first blog post up on TDF Everything by the time this comes out for you guys on Monday, because what I really want to do is Star Wars Episode 9's script is done. I had famously, I'm saying the word famously. I had written my version of Star Wars Episode 9 back after Episode 8 came out. I'm like, ooh, this is what I think they're going to do with the franchise next. So what I'm going to start doing is releasing the blog posts about what I think is going to happen, why I think that's going to happen, how it's going to tie up everything, and not actually give you guys a script, because got to give you the milk, not the cow.
Excellent. All right, so go to dorkshelf.com and you will see podcasts like Loose Cannons. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Play Dead. Page of the Wind, who actually follow us on Twitter, so I'm really sad that I got their name wrong on the other podcast you'll find on Dork Shelf, which is Movies versus Matrimony.
Sorry, guys. We'll get you a beer.
You guys are great.
Yeah.
I love being part of this network. I also write for dorkshelf.com, so you can see some of my stuff there as well.
That's right.
I reviewed Black Panther and Annihilation.
Yep.
And other stuff. So go ahead and check that out.
Which I have not read that to review because I'm waiting for that to come out on Netflix.
Hilarious.
See what I just did there?
Yeah.
Nah.
All right,
guys.
everybody.
You guys have yourselves an excellent week, and stay frosty.
Excellent. Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.